Welcome, because you are now listening to From the Cart Path with your host, Trent Roberts, bringing you tips, support, and player recognition and education with the experts for parents and junior golfers in Indiana. This is From the Cart Path with your host, Trent Roberts.
Hey everyone, this is Trent Roberts with From the Cart Path. I know we've had some conversations in 4 different podcasts at this point. I've been pretty excited to have those podcasts, and it's been a lot of fun. One of my favorite podcasts was doing the TUGR podcast with Jeff Bullock from the Universal Golf Rankings. Now, many of you haven't even seen the Universal Golf Rankings, and how does it look? What's the website look like? So I'm going to take some time tonight and do a walkthrough, a little demo of the website, and then I'm going to post it out there for everyone to see. And if you have any questions or you would like me to do a live demo for everybody, that's something we could do in the future. So here is the website. I'm going to take you there right now. And one of the things I do have is we do have some players that we have saved that we can share with you. So here is the main website. So you would go to TUGR.org. Now, there are different things here, the pro rankings. And if you remember speaking with Jeff, one of the things that he said about the pro rankings is Live Golf came to them to get set up. So Live Golf is looking at their rankings as the rankings that people should be looking at. So now we can go over here to junior rankings. I am going to go through Braden Miller's information since I have worked with Braden on a podcast, and he is going to be one of the voters on the players only vote this year. Braden's information's right here. So one of the first things that you will see here on the website is a player overview. It will give you a description of what Braden has done over the last 18 months. Here's 30 rounds, 13 tournaments over the last 18 months, facing 557 different competitors, or a total of 557 competitors. When all of his head-to-head scores against each other include individual player and added together to determine an overall winner, he beat 499 players out of all of that for an 89.6% win rate. He's currently averaging 70.4 over the last 18 months in the system. So with that being said, you can look right here with the rankings. Here are the current rankings of where he's at globally. 46, class of 2025, he's 24th. The United States of America, he's 39th. In Indiana, he is 2. In Elkhart County, 1. In Goshen, Indiana, 1. His key stats right here. Let's kind of go down here a little bit below on the page. This is the big thing that Jeff talked about in the podcast, the head-to-head win-loss by ranked opponent. As you can see here, here's all the players Braden has faced over time. Now, there's your relative strokes, and we'll go over that again, but relative strokes, let's go back over here so you can see the definition of relative strokes. More account methodology, frequently asked questions. How far back the rankings go, the point system. How do I understand the relative strokes number associated with various rankings? Relative strokes, right here, folks, you can look at it here on the website. It is relative strokes is the name given to the ranking output. The number represents a player's scoring difference per round compared to the best player in a given category. For example, if global relative strokes is 2.55, this means on average 2.55 more strokes per round than the best player in the world. That's what this is. So when we go back to Braden's, we can kind of see all the different information. So we'll go back into Braden. That's what relative strokes is. So you can see where his rankings on the relative strokes are. This means he, on average per round, the number 1 player in the world, he would do about 3.5 strokes behind that individual per round at a tournament. In Indiana, it's about 0.3 behind Alex Holder. Now, he and Alex go back and forth on the ranking on a regular basis. So 0.3 is not much. So when they both show up to a tournament, you're not sure what's going to happen that day, the different trends that are in here. Now, this is great because you have his historical TUGR ranking. Remember what Braden talked about in the podcast? If you remember, he struggled during that time period of his recruiting season and how things kind of went a little rough on him. And then he kind of committed at this point. Everything kind of came together at that. So he kind of shows what he was talking about during that conversation. Is head-to-head win rate and how that's gone up over time, and is all this different information here I could spend hours going over with you. These are his recent tournaments over the last 18 months that you can see. Here are his averages per state that he has played in, his relative to par by state, his strength of schedule that he has played. Up here at this strength of schedule for him, a 96.9% schedule. That tells you he's playing in a lot of tough tournaments. Now, here's the big thing. Here's all of his tournaments that are currently counting. So if you happen to get a TUGR membership, all the yellow stars here are the tournaments that are counting right now. You can see this information as you go through. It goes back 18 months. But as they said in the podcast, that as we go further back, that does not affect the recruiting as much. But you can see some pretty strong rounds in here by Brandon over time. Look at this 69-66 at Purdue Camp. Now, his scoring, here's a different thing. So his scoring breakdown. If you remember, one of the items that was discussed during the podcast was the double bogey rate. You can see on here, here's one of the areas you can find it. Here's his par rate, 59.3% of the time he pars, 23% of the time he birdies, 15% of the time he's getting a bogey, and his double bogey percentage right here, 1.9% of the time. So that means for every 50 holes, Braden's getting a double bogey. And if you remember what TUGR said during the call, those players in the top 50 in the world have less. They only double bogey every 2 to 3 rounds. That just proves it right there with Braden that he double bogeys every 2 to 3 rounds. Here's a scoring average on his key stats. His low round of 66, his best 4-round average of 66.3. His scoring volatility is 3.29. His average course length is 6,856 yards. I don't think I can do that anymore. There's a page here on insights. Insights are what we talked about during the podcast. You have the bounce back rate, birdie or better, your bounce back rate, par or better. So let's go dig into that information here real quick. Bounce back rate, birdie or better, is the percentage of the time Braden Miller gets a birdie on the next hole after making a bogey or worse. So 20% of the time after Braden gets a bogey, he gets a birdie on the next hole. Look at that in this comparison to the top 50 players in the world. He's right there with them. And you can look at the different comparisons by players ranked, or you can go down here and look at by class. So Braden being in the class of 2025, he's right there at the top 100 players. Now we can go look at percentage of time when Braden gets a par or better on the next hole after making a bogey or worse. That's 71% of the time. Those are the things that coaches are looking at. That's what we discussed in the podcast. Now, other items on here you can look at is opening, his mid-strength, and his closing. His opening, you can see here over time, he opens up stronger than everybody in the country. He's right there as one of the best players in the country relative to par in his opening. And then about mid-round, he's got a little bit of coming back. Probably, remember how he talked about in the podcast, he's eating better and doing that stuff. So you can see where this came down and that's getting better. And his closing's right there as well. So as his mid portion of his game gets stronger, and that comes from all the eating properly and everything else that he discussed during that time. One of the things we talked about was how does Braden perform in the weather? Real quick, scoring by temperature. Now, this is one of the things I wish that Mr. Bullock would do over at the Universal Golf Rankings. Is less than 70 degrees, 70 to 80, and more than 80. We live in Indiana. We have guys that are wearing shorts when it's 35 degrees outside. So we need to have something that says 60 to 70, 70 to 80, and then less than 60, in my opinion, because we do play in some bad weather up here. And I want to make sure maybe that's something they could add at time. I hope Jeff's listening. Scoring by wind, how he plays in wind. How does he play? Here's the different ways with the wind. Rain, when it rains during a round. All that information's in here. Advanced scoring. One of the things that Lauren mentioned in the podcast is par 4 scoring. 80.1% of the time, par or better. 17% of the time, par, bogey or worse. But when you look at the two numbers here, 2.9%, 15.4, he's making that up right here. So he's averaging. So if I go back to the scoring page here, let's see if we can find the par 4 scoring. There we go. He's averaging 4.01 on par 4s, and you could see that with the other page. Now, the other page on here does show you by distance, and I think this page shows you by distance. I think this is a cool thing to see. So if you look at Braden, less than 375 yards, 3.8, 375 to 415, 3.95. So these are the things that we were discussing in the podcast. This is the advanced scoring, and you can look at eagle, birdie, par, bogey, double, percentage of the times, a lot easier to read than that first page. The one thing that Lawrence discussed that she talked about was the glide path. Where does my player currently fit in? And I'm showing you Braden's because I feel this is the best one to show you. I don't want to bring up other players that may not be where he's at. I don't think that would be fair. So I do like this right here. You can see that according to this information, Braden is a top tier D1 player on the glide path, on a stroke average, on his stroke average relative to par, and his blow up percentage, and the distance he's playing to get prepared for that next level. These are the things that these guys are looking at. So again, I wanted to do a quick walkthrough with this with you to kind of show you the different things that are available. And again, you have your overview page. I'll walk through this again with all the different stats, all the different tours he's played on: Golf Week, AJGA, Indiana Golf Foundation, some different ones that he's played. Here is the Versus. So if I take his Versus all the way back here to all the players in the world that he's played against at some point, that's how his Versus looks. So the crazy thing is now that we dig closer, let's go into, you can move the scale, and now let's look at the top 100. You can see where he's beaten guys in the top 50, and he's lost to some in the top 50. But as time goes on, he starts beating more of them. And when Jeff was talking about the head-to-head, and that kind of shows you where you are, all this correlates to where your ranking is. But this is some great information for everyone to look at. Again, your trend page, tournaments. This is a good way of going back and looking everywhere that you have played. And if, as they've gone back to 2021, now again, they're only a year old at this point, so they don't go back that far, but they don't need to at this point. Why go back to 2016? There's no reason to. So with that being said, I hope everyone enjoyed me walking through this real quick. I hope that if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to walk you through this. And if I need to spend time with you, I have the time. I might be able to set it up. It just depends on my schedule. This is not my full-time job, obviously. So let's leave that. That was a quick walkthrough of TUGR. I hope that you all enjoyed it. If it was too fast, my apologies, but I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what it looks like. We will put this out there on the YouTube channel that we have, and I might be able to put this on somewhere else, but I think the best bet's going to be YouTube. Again, everyone, thanks for your time, and I hope you guys are practicing out there, and I'm looking forward to a couple future podcasts that we have coming up. I'm recording with Taylor Snively this week, and we are finalizing our schedule for the Players Only podcast for the high school preview. And we also have some more stuff coming up with Lauren Smith with Path for Success. So we have a lot coming our way, and I've got some other ones too. I'm going to have Kai Warner on here to talk about his recruiting process. So looking forward to everybody. Thanks again. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of From the Card Path with your host, Trent Roberts. Please be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode.